Good morning once again, and this is Sunny Chendi from APNIC, and thank you so much for your patience while we are rectifying the network technical issues. The network is back up, so let's begin. This is the annual general meeting at APNIC 56. The code of conduct is up on the screen right behind me. If you approach the microphone, please state your name and affiliation. It's optional, but please state your name. And this session and the following two sessions will be chaired by Gaurav Rajupadhyaya, the chair of APNIC Executive Council. Over to you, Gaurav. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny. Welcome, everyone. This is the APNIC 55 members meeting, also our AGM. Because we lost a few minutes on the network trouble, we'll get started without losing any further time. But I do need to get my pieces of paper here. So this is been a few years since we had this meeting in person. Well, we had one in Singapore, which was hybrid, and we continue to do this in hybrid mode with enough participants also being online. At the end of the day, maybe we can get some stats on the participants, online participant numbers, Sunny, if you can. So we will have to pause now and then if we run into issues on that one. Before I go on to the opening remarks, we'll run through a quick introduction with the members of the EC up here with me. I am Gaurav Rajupadhyaya. I've been the chair of the APNIC EC for the last 7 years. I'm from Nepal, but now I work and live in Washington State in the US. Paul?
Morning, everyone. Paul Wilson, Director General. Thanks.
Kenny Huang, Executive Council member and also Treasurer of APNIC from Taipei. Thank you.
Good morning, Sean APNIC EC for 3 years from Bangladesh. Thank you.
Good morning, Yoshinobu Matsuzaki, ISHI member. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Feng Leng. I'm from Beijing. Thank you.
Hello, this is Camps. I'm from Hong Kong, but I'm now living in Singapore, one of the EC members.
I am Chia Chansa. I'm from Manila.
Thank you, everyone. As I said, this is time to get the meeting started. But before we get started, a couple of things to add. This is in the same theme as I was speaking on Monday during the APRICOT opening. Obviously, we had a bit tight time, but I just want to highlight a few things for this meeting. 2022 was the year of our survey. And, the survey is a critical part of how the APNIC EC receives feedback on our work, on the work of APNIC, and the strategic directions in coming years from not just our members, but also a wider community of stakeholders. So, the APNIC annual report probably just got published online. Tony done or not? Uploading now. So, the annual report has a lot more details on the feedback from the report and how we have taken the feedback from the members into accounting for future planning and how that has helped us craft our strategy going forward. But just to summarize, we got overwhelmingly positive feedback. In fact, the survey in 2022 covered the period when we were stuck and locked down with COVID for 2 years. And despite that, our, the satisfaction number went up. And an excellent rating went up from 39% to 54% for service quality. That, I think, was a big jump from the previous year. So, of course, there's a lot of other improvements, but that one, jumped out to me. And members also think or increased from 39% to 51% on finding the value from APNIC members. So obviously, we are all doing something right there in terms of service delivery and providing support to our members. There were also a lot of responses. We had 10 languages available in the survey, and almost 30% of the responses were in non-English language, which is again high for us. I actually was joking that maybe folks had nothing to do but sit home in the lockdown, so maybe more folks participated in the survey. But we got quite diverse, and we got more increased, and it is all was really good. So apart from that, there are other things that are in the annual report. I don't want to basically talk about it because we have multiple reports from the EC, from the Secretariat, from the Treasurer during the session today. So we'll wait for that, but I'll move on to the next topic here while we will have a series of reports throughout the day from this meeting and the performance of last year. And we'll also have an activity plan for this year, 2023, being presented today. But before that, we would want to go to a critical matter today, elections to the Executive Council. As at every February meetings or at Apricot APNIC joint meetings, we have elections to the EC. This year is the same. Every year, like one year is four EC members, the other year is 3. And Paul is, as a DZ, is ex officio on the EC. So I will ask Jeremy Harrison, our senior legal counsel, to run us through the APNIC elections procedures. Jeremy?
Thank you, Gaurav. My name is Jeremy Harrison. I'm the senior legal counsel at APNIC. This year at the election, there will be 4 APNIC EC members retiring by rotation after serving a 2-year term. They are all eligible for re-election under the APNIC bylaws. That will mean there are 4 vacant seats available on the EC at this election, and the 2-year term for those elected will commence on the 2nd of March. You'll see here the APNIC EC election timeline, which commenced on the 9th of January when the nomination period opened, and ending with the announcement of the election results this afternoon. I'll go through these in more detail on the coming slides. Voting entitlement. APNIC member corporate contacts and contacts with voting rights, as well as duly appointed proxies, can vote in the APNIC EC election. And the number of votes are determined by the membership tier of each member, ranging from associate with 1 vote to extra large with 64 votes. Online EC nominations opened on the 9th of January 2023 and ended at 5:30 p.m. UTC +10 on the 9th of February. Corporate contacts were required to complete and submit an online nomination form via the website. For voting, only corporate contacts and contacts with voting rights can vote online using the Big Pulse voting system. The 2-week voting period commenced on this Thursday, the 16th of February, and will end at 2:30 p.m. UTC +8, that's Manila time, this afternoon. Corporate contacts could appoint a proxy who would vote on behalf of that member, which means that the member would lose their right to vote directly for the APNIC EC election. Proxy appointments opened on the 16th of February and ended at 9:30 a.m. Manila time on Tuesday this week. The proxy voting commenced today at 9:30 a.m. Manila time, UTC +8, and will close at 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. At the close of voting, the election officers will hold a meeting with the scrutineers to download the election results and email those results to the election chair in the presence of the scrutineers. The results will be announced this afternoon at 3:45 p.m. UTC +8. And at that time, the election chair will also disclose whether there were any disputes, the resolution of those disputes, and also disclose any communication from the election scrutineers regarding any anomalies or issues with the election. You'll see on the screen an example of the results, which you might be familiar with from previous elections, and this will be presented this afternoon. The election chair is Lito Averia, the president of PH Cert. He's been appointed by the APNIC EC. He is independent from any APNIC member or candidate and has no interest in the election results. His responsibilities are to oversee the election process, appoint the election scrutineers, declare the election results, and to resolve any disputes. The election officers are Andre Gelderblom and Connie Chan, who are appointed by the APNIC EC, and they're selected from the Secretariat staff. Their responsibilities are to administer the call for nominations, manage the voting processes, and retrieve the online voting results in the presence of the scrutineers. The election scrutineers are appointed by the election chair. They are Jeremy Walder from RIPE NCC, Jeffrey Kramer from ISOC Foundation, and Save Vasia from ICANN. They're selected from staff of other internet organizations such as RIRs, ICANN, and ISOC, who are present here in Manila at the meeting. They do not vote and must be independent from any APNIC member or candidate. And as I mentioned before, their responsibilities are to observe the downloading of the results by the election officers and to notify the election chair if they identify any anomaly or issue. Disputes. Any complaint regarding the conduct of the election must be lodged in writing with the election chair no later than 1 hour before the scheduled declaration of the election. Notices can only be lodged by nominees or members through their authorized voting representatives by email to election-chair@apnic.net. The election chair will resolve the disputes at his discretion. And now I hand back to Garab.
Thank you, Jeremy. I would like to request our election chair, Lito, to comment the thing. But Lito is very, very experienced in the election process. Apart from being the president of the Philippines CERT, and the national chairperson of Philippines National Citizen Movement for Free Elections. He is on numerous advisory boards and advises public and private organizations on security and business continuity, including the Anti-Cybercrime Group Advisory Council and the Philippine Commission on Elections. He's also named resource for the Philippines Supreme Court Subcommittee on E-Commerce Education for Justice, University Modules Project, and the United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes. He has lectured cybersecurity in Philippine Judicial Academy, Department of Justice, and Council of Europe. I was told that last week he was managing a state election in a province somewhere in the Philippines. So we are very honored to have you here, Lito. Please.
Thank you very much, Gaurav, for that generous introduction. Magandang umaga. Welcome to the Philippines. Welcome to Manila. So I don't need to introduce myself because Gaurav did that job. But I'm honored to serve as election chair of the APNIC Executive Council election today. So I'm going to introduce the nominees running for the APNIC EC elections. We will not be having any live speeches today, but you can find all the nominees' profiles and statements on the election webpage. Some nominees have also pre-recorded their short speeches, so I encourage you to watch the videos before voting. I will present the nominees in the order of the nominations received. Okay, so the first nominee is Kenny Wang. Okay. Second is Rob Thomas. Third nominee is Rupinder Singh Perhar. The fourth nominee is Lu Heng. The fifth nominee is Jonathan Gleason. The fifth nominee is Anlei Hu. The seventh nominee is Muhammad Kashif Nawaz. The eighth nominee is Melvin Cheng. The ninth nominee is Vivian Paris. The 10th nominee is Yoshinobu Matsuzaki. The 11th nominee is Larissa Santos. The 12th nominee is Masood Rana Jibon. Last but not least, the 13th nominee is Muhammad Arif. I wish all the nominees the best of luck in today's elections. Online voting is already open, and proxy online voting is now open to proxy voters who meet the voting criteria that was explained earlier by Jeremy. If anyone is having any voting or login issues, please contact APNIC Help Desk via phone, Skype, or live chat. So I would like to declare that voting is open and will end at 2 p.m. Manila time, UTC +8.
2:30.
2:30 p.m. Sorry. I will come back to announce the election results during the AGM at 3:45 in the afternoon. Thank you very much. And good luck to all the nominees.
Thank you, Lito. Thank you very much. And as Lito said, good luck to all of the nominees. We will proceed with the next thing on the agenda here. The next item is the APNIC activity report for 2022. Paul will present this. This is more of what we did last year. There is a separate presentation about what the plans for this year are after the coffee break. So, Paul.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. And thank you all for being here. Welcome to the last day of Apricot 2023 and APNIC 55. So I'd just like to start with about half an hour, if I can stick to the time, on what's been going on at APNIC for the last 1 year. So this is a report that some of you will have seen before. It's structured according to our current strategic plan, which covers the period from 2020 to 2023. And that plan organises APNIC activities under these 5 pillars, which are membership, registry, development, information and capability. And under each of those pillars, there are work streams, which are groupings for activities. There are 18 work streams, and you'll get to hear about those during the rest of this report, and in particular in the forward plan, which I'll be talking about later. Starting with the membership pillar, the first work stream is the all-important member services. And so here you see the growth of APNIC membership over the years, the growth also of NIR sub-accounts. And if you add those two together, the right-hand side of the top chart, you'll see we have upwards of 23,000 organisations being served by APNIC and NIRs in this region. Now, as for APNIC members, we're maintaining a really high service satisfaction level, 95% excellent and above average. We're maintaining a 4 nines performance on our 48-hour service level agreement for member services. We're collecting a lot of feedback from members, 3,842 feedback items, of which 940 required action and were completed. We're engaging very actively with through the member services area with members directly on special needs. So across 32 economies, we spoke to nearly 300 members, specifically supporting RPKI transfers, technical assistance, and importantly, in the last year, and I'll get to this, the historical resource transition. We don't have too many attempts at fraud within the APNIC region, but 35 were detected during the last year and actioned, of course. The charts on the right show not only the NIR and APNIC memberships, but also below that, the distribution of all of those organisations across the 5 sub-regions, the 4 sub-regions and the external region of APNIC. The APNIC survey is something that we conduct every 2 years. And so last September, you heard about the survey result for the latest survey. This is just a summary. There's a lot of details if you want to join the URL at the bottom of this screen to look at not only this survey, but the 12 previous surveys that have been run over the last 25 years. But we covered 26 economies in detailed interviews prior to the online survey, which attracted 1,622, just slightly less than last time, responses, but 61% of those responses were new, all showing a high satisfaction level, matching or improving on 2020. So that's where you see the 2018, 2020 and 2022 results in the charts there for quality of services, value of services and value of membership. And it's really fantastic. And I think a real credit to everyone involved at APNIC Secretariat in providing these services that we've just improved gradually over the years, and in fact very significantly in the last year. So the top charts of the top segments of excellent and above average have both have grown in terms of the total that you see there. So thanks and congratulations to the APNIC Secretariat staff for that. Another work stream under the membership pillar is membership products. We're now operating our product management with transparent roadmaps. So there is a roadmap site within the APNIC website where you can see exactly what's being planned from the beginning of the year and through the year, as the plans do tend to adapt in response to feedback and progress that's made in an agile manner. But we start off the year with a set of planned roadmap goals, and as you see on the left-hand side, quite a number of those were implemented. Only one of them left in progress at the end of the year, but they cover things like the APIs for authentication into membership services, the automation of workflows, particularly around historical resources transition, which has been underway, dealing with workflows on invalid contacts, overhauling and improving My APNIC, and I'll give you a glimpse of that in a second. Audit and activity logs for the security of updates to the database, in particular corporate contacts. That's all on the planned roadmap from the beginning of the year. There are additional goals added to the roadmap during the year, improving the help center, the login process, proxy appointments for the elections, and other administrative changes. We're still working on improving the contact management across My APNIC, but that's a good example of how the product management is happening at APNIC with these roadmaps. And as I said, the roadmaps are completely transparent and available for all of the product groups that we work on at APNIC Secretariat. Just an example in a little more detail, My APNIC is the main membership product, and it is the interface by which APNIC members interface and interact with APNIC. So there was quite a lot of upgrade to the interface, adding widgets and more utility to that interface, and it's got a high satisfaction rating of 81%. So I hope it is serving the needs of members who are here, and of course any ideas and feedback you have, always welcome. Now, I've got a couple of slides here on the HRM process. That's the historical resource maintainer transition, which arose from a decision last year on the charging of membership fees, or the introduction of historical maintainers to the membership process. I'll just skip to this chart, which shows the status of that project and the progress since it started last March. And we've got about 3,300 cases which are being managed in this project. You see them illustrated here from the beginning, where we had 3,000 plus cases yet to be contacted in blue. We did a big contact run in April, so we were making contact, not yet receiving responses in April. The number of contacts and the number of outstanding responses grew all the way through to September, but we started seeing real progress there at the same time with responses from resource holders, either returning prefixes to APNIC, going through the process to claim those resources officially and formally through identification processes, which can be pretty detailed and pretty tough. A lot of work involved here, and by the end, at least by February, we've got a very different picture with those 3,300 or so cases, all still in progress, but aiming to finish those during the year. Just a couple of glimpses here of how we're managing that. We've got a pretty comprehensive system, which you can see here, reporting the cases. That the upper three donuts there report the 3,337 cases which are being dealt with. The donut on the left is the cases which involve routed resources, and the one in the middle shows the unrouted resources. And as we discussed at the last meeting, it's a really important distinction between which historical resource holders who are obviously routing and using those resources and those who are not. The chart at the bottom shows the number of addresses involved. So 7,300,000 IPv4 addresses there in process. It's nearly half of a /8 and a very significant amount of address space that will eventually be brought back into proper management and registration and a membership status with APNIC. There's another table here giving the full numbers for those who are interested in the numbers. Again, the number of cases, routed and unrouted, the number of addresses routed and unrouted in all of those different categories. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of the numbers here, the amount of work that's been involved over the last year, and it will be continuing during this year. Okay, I'll move on to the registry pillar of the strategic plan. You've seen these charts before, I'm sure. They show the IPv4, IPv6 and ASN delegation activities. IPv4 dipped down, the top left, it dipped down over the last few years during COVID and before, but we're sort of recovering to a higher level than we've had for the last 5 or 6 years. IPv6 is being maintained. The colours that you see here again are the subregions, and so you can see some change in the balance of the number of delegations happening, for instance, diminishing to East Asia, which involves pretty saturated markets, continuing to increase in Southeast Asia and particularly in South Asia as internet services become are being rolled out more and more. And it's a similar picture with IPv6. And so again, you see a similar distribution of delegations there. The bottom chart looks a bit weird. It's ASNs. In 2021, there were some very large ASN allocations to NIRs in South Asia and East Asia, which gave us a bit of a strange peak there, but we're back to an allocation rate of about 1,000 ASNs per year. Now, here are historical transfer charts showing in order market transfers and merger and acquisition transfers on the top line, and then intra-RIR transfers inbound and outbound on the bottom line. They're all at the same scale. So you can see the most active has been traditionally market transfers with up to about 70,000 /24s being transferred in a given year. But normally it's more like, if I can read it properly, more like about 10 to 20,000 /24s. And the yellow line, if you can see it, is the number of transactions. So we see a pretty steady ongoing rate of transfer activity within APNIC. You can see mergers and acquisitions are increasing in recent years. Inbound RIR transfers are decreasing. Outbound is a little bit erratic, but I think last year was the first year, in fact, that we had more outbound transfers than inbound. Whether that's a significant trend, too early to tell, obviously. We also organise under the registry pillar a work stream of registry products, again, according to an agile product management methodology. There's a few highlights here. Development of APIs for access to registry products is pretty important at the moment. We've developed an NIR API specifically for NIR functionality. There's a general registry API prototype in deployment now for public testing and scheduled production deployment in 2023. A few other things there related to RPKI and RDAP updates, the availability of the critical registry services all were held to 4 nines, 99.99% availability through the last year. But we're also looking at the possibility of creating a higher commitment for availability of highly critical services. And this is underway, but we're looking at, we've had a gap analysis and we're looking at what's needed for our readiness for 5 nines availability for highly critical services. A little summary here of the registry product roadmaps. We had a pretty major piece of work on the improvement of rower deletion and recreation processes during transfers to minimize downtime of the rower availability. That's become more and more important. We've worked on transfer logs under Prop 142. a new set of resource manager features in MyAPNIC, and we're still underway on updating authorizations for WHOIS, improving ASN management in WHOIS and MyAPNIC, and also importantly, pre-validation of PKI changes. So if you want to change PKI in a way that conflicts with the current state of the routing system, we'll give you a warning about that, just in case you might be about to switch your own network off and prevent your own network from validating properly through PKI. Excuse me. Okay, we also have a summary here of policy developments over the last year. There were 8 policy proposals which were processed through the 2 conferences last year. 5 of those reached consensus, were adopted and implemented by the APNIC Secretariat. 3 of them didn't, but have either been returned for further discussion, which may have happened here, or abandoned. The development pillar is a large one because it represents a lot of the work that APNIC does in training, community support, infrastructure support, and conferences and fellowships and so on. RPKI is a big area of activity. We've had 26 RPKI tutorials, mostly led by community trainers over the last year. Monthly RPKI training that's focused on individual economies to bring the operators in individual economies together. They're likely to be the ones who are peering with each other and using RPKI amongst their own community. We worked with some members in cleaning up their routing for RPKI and improving the RPKI ROA coverage. In one case, Fiji reached 99% coverage, Cambodia 91% coverage after the assistance that was given by ourselves and community trainers. We published more deployment case studies to help give examples of RPKI in deployment. And on the right, you see a pretty impressive set of figures about the number of networks deploying ROAs around our region, the top 10 economies, which are led by India with 3,329 networks publishing ROAs, Indonesia with 2,000 something, Bangladesh with over 1,000. So that's a pretty impressive rate of deployment of RPKI, just accelerating over the last year or two. We haven't forgotten about IPv6. IPv6 is still as important, if not more so, than it ever has been. We're doing, the Secretariat is providing IPv6 training and support, deployment stories on the blog, podcasts and so forth. We've reached 37.65% capability as measured by APNIC Labs across the Asia Pacific, and nearly 70% of members are holding IPv6 resources these days. And you can see the chart there, which shows the steady increase of IPv6 deployment and readiness in the Asia Pacific region, up to, as I said, nearly 40%. The APNIC Academy is the host of the home of APNIC training, online, face-to-face, self-paced labs and so forth. There's been a lot of updates to the training course materials, updated 5 new courses, new labs on different technical topics such as routing, Linux, IPv6, DNS, a new self-paced OSPF course, content on introducing cybersecurity and BGP. And we're deploying, we've got a virtual lab system available, 12 new virtual labs launched during the last year. The table shows the volume of training that's being delivered. 141 instructor-led courses over the last year with 3,800 students in the instructor-led category. There's also 18 webinars and 1,000 attendees to those. The self-paced courses gave us more than 2,000 completions last year, 4,500 contact hours, 8,385 new students to bring the total of students on the Academy to 25,795. They cross 48 economies. Those students conducted 11,906 lab sessions for over 12,000 hours of lab time during the last year. So that's a really busy and I think very productive and well appreciated set of services from the APNIC Academy team. Again, there's a product roadmap for the Academy product and a set of goals there which were completed, integrations with other systems like Salesforce and Okta authentication, the training wiki and the Academy platform being finally integrated, improving our repository of training materials, providing mobile support, improving the virtual labs and Academy website navigation. APNIC conferences last year, they were APNIC 53 at Apricot 2022 and APNIC 54, which for the first time was co-located with the Asia Pacific Regional IGF and the Asia Pacific School of Internet Governance. So that was a pretty big event in Singapore as our first back to work hybrid meeting that was held then. So we had, you can see the figures here, we had good numbers of in-person and remote participants for those meetings, a good spread of economies. We had plenty of action on YouTube and the remote broadcasting, remote participation, and net promoter scores of 60 and 65, which are very healthy for those events. Technical community support, we at the Secretariat gave support of some kind to 30 different technical events. And when I say of some kind, it could be sponsorship, it could be speakers, training sessions, technical support, webcast, and so forth. Also participation in the program committees. So there were 22 NOGs last year, which received that support. Likewise, similar support, but to 45 different security events in the region, including 4 quarterly threat sharing community meetings, which are centered around the HoneyNet, which is growing in its popularity and utility. We had 4 certs being supported last year in Bhutan, New Zealand, Tonga, and Korea. Internet cooperation, that's a label we use for both the cooperation that happens amongst the ISTAR organization. So APNIC, as a member of the NRO, is also cooperating not only with other RIRs, but with other internet community organizations. We were actually the chair of the NRO last year, so chairing the NRO EC Executive Committee and the coordination groups, various coordination groups of the NRO. 22 online meetings happened last year with that group. There was work on a new NRO strategic plan, which has identified 3 common priorities for all of the RIRs, which are being launched very actively this year in work on the combined RPKI, the coordination of RPKI across the RIRs, also cybersecurity and the resilience of the RIRs to those cyber incidents, and also government engagement. And we, of course, participated in a whole bunch of RIR, ISTAR meetings last year. The other part of internet cooperation is internet governance. There was an IGF last year where APNIC was involved with 4 workshops and a whole lot of different preparatory meetings and inputs. There was the APR IGF and the APSEG hosted, as I said, with APNIC 54 last September, and we were involved with the program committee and many meetings in support of the Asia Pacific Regional IGF. There are also these things called NRIs, which are national and regional initiatives of the IGF. So there were 9 of those in our region last year, including 3 youth IGFs and 2 School of Internet Governance events around the region in quite a few places in our region. Thank you. Government engagement. Last year, very busy because of COVID. There were 2 major ITU events that had been scheduled in 2020 and 21, which had been deferred to 2022. We were participating in those, as well as the plenipotentiary meeting, which is the major 4-year meeting of the ITU. The Asia Pacific voices are funneled into the ITU through APT, the Asia Pacific Telecommunity. So our participation there is pretty important in preparation for those ITU events. But we also work with APT on training events, and we had training in Myanmar and Mongolia that was specifically coordinated with the APT, particularly to reach more governmental audiences with those trainings. We're still a guest at APEC Tel, presenting on IPv6 at the Tel 64 meeting. We worked with PNG on capacity building, LEAs in the Pacific and Interpol on security training, and accreditation in the open-ended working group of the United Nations. Moving on, this is still within the development pillar. We had 929 participants at SIG meetings during the last year. We had over 900 conference newcomers, and we had a really successful fellowship program last year, with 30 fellows selected out of 371, 50-50 gender balance, 37% youth, and a really high level of engagement. And we got the perfect net promoter score of 100 from the participants in the fellowship committee, fellowship program. They were the most enthusiastic group of people. Fantastic to have around if you met them at APNIC 53. We've launched Orbit, which is a new platform for mailing list interaction. So you can still join APNIC mailing lists in the normal email way, but you can also join online on a web-based, more social media-ish platform called Orbit. That was launched and it's going pretty well so far. We're tracking community engagement quite systematically here. You can see the growth of annual engagements even through COVID. You can see the breakdown by sub-region and all the different engagement types. The light blue engagement type in the bars below is training, because of course it's our most sort of popular and consistent engagement event. Moving on, in internet infrastructure support. This is primarily in these three areas. Over the last year, we're supporting root servers. Had quite a few procurement difficulties over the last couple of years with root server hardware, waiting more than 12 months in some cases for hardware to arrive. So we've deployed a few. We've got 11 mRoot servers in progress, and we're hoping to get those done this year. Helping with some IXPs around the region with some of the same developments. We did support PKIX in Lahore with a route server deployment and some hardware, and that was much needed in that case. And lastly, as I mentioned, I touched on earlier, the community HoneyNet and threat sharing platform. We've got new partners in those countries, for 20 partners in total, and 100 sensors now collecting data on as part of the HoneyNet project. Just a nod here to the APNIC Foundation. The foundation reports separately, but I wanted to just show here the projects that are coming into the foundation and which of those projects are actually being managed by APNIC and therefore helping APNIC's development activities. So the top section there is a set of 6 different APNIC managed foundation funded projects for a total of $2.4 million in the last year. The budgets for these projects were considerably higher. We only used 54% of the budget for APNIC projects last year for all sorts of reasons, often to do with travel deferral and equipment delays and recruitment delays. The bottom section is actually projects run by the foundation and reported by the foundation, but it just shows the scale of foundation activities these days. For the year, there was a total budget of nearly $13 million and over $8 million spent in the last year. All right, I'll move on quickly through the information pillar, which includes the blog, and the blog is continuing to increase pretty dramatically in its popularity, the number of viewers. It's also increasing in the number of guest posts that contribute to the blog content. And so I'd like to thank all of the blog guests who've contributed in the last year, because it's certainly helping to increase the reach and the diversity of the blog. So nearly 80,000 views a month. We have a new podcast called Ping with over nearly 12,000 impactful plays, which are people who actually listen to the more or less the whole blog, the whole podcast. Again, under information, we've got a set of 3 products developed under a roadmap with an agile method and so on. Resource Explorer is how you get to see all of the disposition of all of the resources managed by APNIC, and there's going to be some extensions to that in the coming year. Dash is the dashboard for AS Health. It's got a net promoter score of 71, so it's really seen as a useful operational tool. Dash widgets are being incorporated into My APNIC to make them more accessible for APNIC members to see various items of status about their own network being presented to them via My APNIC. And NetOx, the network toolbox, which is an adaptation of RIPE stats, is also being used. And here we have information products roadmap. Again, quite a few things on the roadmap completed. One roadmap goal remaining to progress, which is extending REX to cover the global stats for IP addressing, for IP resources and other data. Jeff Houston and Joel Damas are continuing a pretty huge workload here on research presentations, analysis and reporting. They covered, I think mostly Jeff covered 41 presentations last year at a whole lot of events, 47 blog posts. The research topics are pretty much static, but there's a lot of work being done with ICANN these days on DNS and DNS related measurement and analysis. There's cooperation going on furnishing routing data for ISOC manners, DNS measurements with ICANN, and also DNS measurements on the 1.1.1 cooperative research with Cloudflare. Capability. The capability pillar is a fairly big one because it includes all of the internal infrastructure that supports all of the other pillars. There's a lot of work that goes on mostly under Chihu's team, but also the software development teams. Here, one of the major achievements in the last year was achieving ISO 27001 certification, which was a challenging project over a couple of years, but we did achieve it last year. We also achieved a recertification on ISO 9001, which included for the first time our product development activities, and that was a success as well. But there's a lot of stuff going on here on systems and platforms, network infrastructure, particularly on the security side. Quality and capability. So this is moving into the internal administrative and HR realm. We've got biannual people pulse surveys of staff engagement exceeding the expected benchmarks. We're looking at career pathways and succession frameworks for APNIC staff. A new HR system was launched. Last year was pretty busy in terms of recruitment. There was quite a bit of churn and quite a few roles to be filled for foundation projects. So 30 roles were filled last year. That's a pretty big load for the HR team. We conducted a billing and payment survey last year with a lot of really useful information about how payment expectations are and requests are changing over time. We renewed mutuality status, renewing APNIC's tax-free status for member funds with the Australian Tax Office. We implemented a new whistleblower policy so that anyone internally or within the APNIC supplier and vendor circles, if they had any complaint or issue to do with APNIC conduct, there's a legal requirement that we provide a channel for that. And we've done workplace planning to cope with changes required at the Cordelia Street office in South Brisbane and planning for the new office site, which we expect to be moving into in about 3 years' time. Finally, if you had a look at the activity plan for this year, you would have noticed a whole stack of success indicators under each of the 5 pillars. So we had many success indicators. This is a kind of a new part of our planning, and we're refining this to make it more sort of meaningful in every case. But you can see all the details in the activity plan and in the detailed report for this year. But we achieved 78% of our success indicators completed in the last year. 3% very close to completed, 19% really not quite, but that's where we were at the end of the year in terms of our declared goals and success indicators. Thank you all very much. I've gone over by a couple of minutes, but there's the happy APNIC staff from APNIC 54. If there's anything that any of you need from any one of the people in the picture, many of whom are here, please do be in touch and let us know. Thanks very much for listening to this rather long report. Happy to answer any questions if there are any, perhaps during the open mic in view of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We will have the treasurer report, and then we'll have a short open mic on the report itself. Because all the activities go together with the financial side of the house. So I'd like to ask Kenny, one treasurer, to present the treasurer report for the APNIC EC.
Okay, thank you, Gara. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to deliver a treasury report. The slide doesn't move. Okay, right. So basically, treasury report was split into three parts, and I will majorly present the two parts. The first part will be year 2022 financial report, and second part will be year 2023 budget and activity plan, and the rest will be appendix, some supplementary slides. So starting from year 2022 financial report. So here is a highlight for year 2022 financial highlight. The equity position decreased by 3.3 million as compared to year 2021. And because that's a fair value decrease on investment portfolio of 4 million. And financial stability measure at 15.9 months of the operating expense. And operating deficit of $300,000 compared to the budget deficit, $800,000. So the audit outcome conducted by Ernst & Young will be an unqualified opinion. That will be a successful audit and no significant deficit not in relation to internal control. So here comes to the statement of financial position and until the end of December 2022, and our net asset will be $35.5 million, and that will be a little bit changed, 3.2 million deficit. And one of the major driver will be the decrease of the investment portfolio that lose $4 million. The financial stability measure, as I mentioned, the number of months of expense covered by equity will be 15.9 months. And so the major reason also impact by the 3.2 million reduction in equity from decline in the investment portfolio. So you can see the growth of APNIC capital reserve. The majority APNIC capital will be the financial asset. And last year, until end of last year, the major loss will be on the financial asset, but it's not real value, only in the book value loss because of the market volatility. So that's a statement of financial performance, and the actual statement of financial performance until end of 2022, the net deficit will be $3.2 million loss, and the operating deficit will be $300,000 versus whole budget will be deficit $800,000. So you can see the actual result overcome starting from our expected budget and also operating revenue, and including you can see there are some big gap between financial receipt and foundation receipt and foundation expense. Basically, they offset each other, and major loss will be investment portfolio because the financial investment portfolio, the book value of investment portfolio was decreased by 4 million. So that's the revenue part. The revenue, total revenue, actual revenue will be in year 2022 will be $30.2 million. And that including we have 824 new member versus 804 what we budget last year. And we have 341 closed member, and we have 1,226 average new member fee versus 1,435 budget. So that's the expense, the breakdown into more detail. The actual expense for the year 2022 will be $30.6 million. What we budget will be $33.7 million. So the expense basically a little bit increase. There are three driving factors. The first was impact of inflation because the inflation in Australia is pretty high last year. The inflation was 7.8% in Australia in 2022, and also consider COVID-19 impact. But in 2022, APNIC spent 1.3 million return on travel, and so that's one of the situation change. And the other principle is APNIC Foundation funding accounting treatment that different. As I mentioned, foundation receipt and foundation expense, they offset each other. So that kind of accounting treatment also changed that kind of calculation. Capital expenditure considerably will be a smaller item, and actual expense for CapEx in 2022 will be $827,000. So the audit outcome conducted by Ernst & Young issue unqualified audit opinion. So let's give a true and fair view of APNIC financial position and also comply with the relevant accounting standard. And from the observation, and no significant deficit not in relation to internal controls. So I move to the second part, that will be 2023 budget and activity plan. The budget in 2023 input and assumption, the basic input come from the survey, as Paul already reported, and the survey come from 2022 APNIC survey, and also 2023 APNIC activity plan and priority established through operation planning, and also activity funded by undertaken on behalf of the APNIC Foundation. Another key assumption will be revenue based on the membership fee that's calculated using the recent trend in membership activity. Expense committed expenditure tracked in APNIC ERP system. And also we need to estimate consumer price index inflation, because as you can see, that we have great impact on the inflation last year. So the budget for 2023, and so here our budget will be running outcome will be a deficit 1.1 million loss in the deficit for budget 2023. And so from that revenue part for 2023, that was estimate will be $32.7 million. The membership growth we estimate will be 748 new member, and with 40% LDC members, that's quite significant amount of member from LDC. Sorry, I forget. Okay. For the expense part, how we budget for 2023 budget will be $33.8 million, that including expense growth, including salary and personnel. And so basically APNIC will conduct recruitment freeze. So new position are APNIC Foundation funded, and other expense focus on security, resilience, and core member and registry service. So that will be the 5-year trend, as I mentioned. For the budget 2023, we estimate will be a 1.1 million deficit. The CapEx expenditure in 5-year trend, what we budget for 2023 will be 1.1 million. CapEx compared to OpEx will be a much smaller item. That basically will be used for equipment and software and office furniture and fitting. So as Paul already mentioned, we do have APNIC 5 pillars, including membership, registry, development, information, and capacity. That's 5 pillars, and each pillar have breakdown different work streams. So that break down our budget expenditure into different small category. Okay. So that will be end of my treasury report. I'm happy to take any question. Before that, I encourage all the members can go to apnic.net/transparency to get a detailed activity plan and also treasury report as well. Okay, I'm happy to take any question from here.
Thank you, Kenny. I think this is the right time. We have an open mic here, but before we go into the general open mic topics, if there are any specific questions for the Secretariat activity report and the treasurer report, I think it's the time to ask those now. Just at this start, please limit yourself to these 2 topics, and then we'll have the open mic right after that. And FYI, the audit reports, the activity plan, all of these reports are now uploaded to the APNIC website. If you want to have a look, you can go and grab them right away. And as usual, when you come to the mic, please be aware of our code of conduct, be respectful, and remember that this is being streamed and there are remote participants. So we should acknowledge them as well. And we may have questions remote in the room. So, and as we always say, before we start on the open mic, please do introduce yourself. And be short and precise in the comment or questions you may have. Thank you. After
Yes, Aftab Siddiqui speaking as a member. What is the plan from the EC to address the LDCs? As you know, most of the LDCs are getting off the LDC status in coming years. So what is the plan or forecasting for that?
From treasurer point of view or from APNIC point of view? Sorry.
I mean, it of course it's the treasurer point of view as well.
Okay, right.
That it was going to hit the fees to them as well.
Thank you for your question. According to our current membership trend, and basically like the membership from LDC is getting increased. So you can see the LDC occupy 40% of our total membership share. So that caused a little bit concern about our financial situation. That's why APNIC has conducted every periodical strategic planning in 4 years. For the strategic planning cycle, we will conduct a strategic plan that responds to some sort of question. For example, as after you just mentioned, how we dealing with the LDC, because like 50% is come from a membership fee, and that really we need to consider how to balance that situation. But meanwhile, we also need to consider the situation LDC that really have. We really encourage people from LDC country, they're willing to participate in activity and to accept more training and more networking opportunity in the community as well. And Gerald, do you want to have some?
Yeah, I think after thanks for this question. This is something that we have looked at a couple of times, and I think we have 2 countries on our LDC region graduating sort of in the near future, not this year or next year, but in near future. There is some, I don't know if it is in the supplementary sites, but there is data on our annual report that shows that though we have quite a large number of members in LDCs, they tend to be very small or newer members. So at the end of the day, we do need to analyze in the prospect of what is the financial impact before we make any kind of adjustments to either the fees or any other things we could do to ease the transition. But again, this is work in progress. This year's strategic planning exercise will have a lot more details in what the impact is, how do we transition over. But at the same time, we have already started to engage members in the countries that are on the list for graduation and actively soliciting feedback on how we could proceed with it, right? Again, there is a lot of inflationary pressure. The pricing is not good. So, in one sense, doubling the membership fees for those members will have a bigger impact on them than it has on APNIC. But again, without a very detailed financial analysis, it's hard to say how we, help those members graduate from being an LDC to a DC. So it is work in progress, I would say. There is some initial, if you look at the annual reports, there is some initial data we've looked at, but we have not, decided or sort of build a strategy around it.
Okay, any other question?
Any questions on the activity report and any questions remotely there? None? Okay. Thank you very much, Kenny. Now this is open mic for the first session. Any other topics, any other issues to be raised?
So my name is Bikram. So is there any plan for this not-for-profit organization or not-for-profit company or community-based organization can get services from APNIC? Like in Microsoft or Google, they provide not-for-profit company for their license and other services.
I don't think this has been raised before. At least not to my recollection in the last, I don't know how many years I've been around. But that is definitely worth considering, Bikram. And I guess we take note of this and we'll see what we can do. I can't even say how many of our members are not-profit and how they work. So, but point taken. Thank you.
Carl Kloppenborg from Australia. So I have a few, I'm rather short. I have a few points to make. This EC election has been rather interesting. And I was doing a review earlier of non-for-profit and for-profit organisations across Australia and the Asia Pacific, in particular the medical societies in Australia. As an example, the Australian Medical Council, who oversees governance there. And they, like us, have an executive council that they elect. And that executive council is derived of people of the industry of note and merit, of experience. And in this particular election, I'm not going to call out individuals because it'd be against the code of conduct, but it's pretty blatant if you review the notes that there are people involved in this election that don't have relevant experience, that don't have involvement in our industry, who haven't been to any of the conferences, the involvements, the NOG operators, the SIGs, anything. And, you know, it's very surprising that we allow that. Now, I, as many people would know already, have been quite vocal about this. I've been quite vocal about my opinion of a board stacking that is happening at the moment. And with less than 3 hours before this election closes, we're going to hopefully have the final votes come through. And I'm hoping that people online, especially listening to me now, who haven't voted, can be compelled in the last moment to put their votes in. But I think it's really important that RIRs globally and our membership bases come together to strengthen the set of standing and criteria that allows individuals to be elected, and also in particular strengthening the laws and bylaws around the appointment of multiple people of same companies. It seems like a very dangerous precedent to just allow anyone from, you know, whether it's Singtel or Huawei or Telstra or anything really, you know, to be able to just come onto the election board. And so I want people online, I want people here who haven't casted their votes already to, in these last 3 hours, go and review the candidates based on what I've said. Go and have a look at the credentials and think to yourself, do you want someone representing the Executive Council of APNIC or any RIR who has had no involvement in our industry, who's had no involvement in any conference participation, any special interest group or whatnot? Is that the representative you want? Because you don't go to the hospital and speak to the non-doctor about medicine. So it should be the same thing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I think that is you know, quite an interesting perspective there. I guess we have not looked at that in many years. And for sure, you know, this is something that we probably need to relook, because the way APNIC was structured was 25 odd years ago. And the size of APNIC and the way things were done back then probably were more simplistic. Now, with our budget, with the foundation, with the trust and all the other things we do, we probably, you know, more time need to look at some of those things. And it's not that we have not looked at it. Like if the folks who remember or were involved with Apricot may know that Apricot was structured exactly the same way as APNIC for many, many, many years. And, you know, around 5 years ago, that started changing, but APNIC is a much larger organization than Apricot is. And so it's a bit more work to get that done. So, Carl, your input is received and recorded. We will have the Secretariat communicate back to you on more details, if that is all right. Because there are activities that, you know, probably not don't want to consume here. And maybe the right thing would be to do also set up some discussion around this at the next APNIC meeting in Kyoto about some of these things. But again, you know, I've been around for 20 plus years in the APNIC, being fairly active. And when I came in, it was a small organization with very few members. I could basically go to an APNIC meeting and know everyone in the room. throughout the week. And now I don't think I can spell or know everyone in this room personally. So we've just grown, and systems need to change as we grow. And I think that is something we need to do. And again, we've been aware of this, as I said. And I used to be on the APNIC board, and we've kind of started moving into a more different structure after many years, and probably the right time to consider it as well. Thank you, Carl. I see someone standing up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mia Perez from the APNIC Foundation Gender and Diversity Project. I saw that the project of the foundation is shown a while ago. So on behalf of all the participants who are here, we are around 33 from APNIC Foundation and 27 participants. From the Philippines, it's around 22 participants that joined the workshop, hackathon, and conference. So on behalf of all the participants who are joining a different event right now in the technical session, I would like to thank you, the host of this organization, and also, and also as a Filipino, thank you for hosting an event like this in the Philippines. We are proud to be having an event like this here. It's a big international event that we rarely have. And also, big shout out also to Achi for helping in the diversity session. We tried to integrate a, interpretation session to accommodate and include Thai and Tatum participants to be interpreted, but we will try next time to have that. But including that, I think, and trying that is a big first step. So on behalf of all the others that are on Zoom, hi everyone that is also watching this event. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we appreciate the participants from the local community and those who work closely with our foundation and all the foundation activities. Looks like we've recovered on time. So if we can take a break. For the Zoom administrators, is there anything remote? None? Okay, the next presentation is a fairly long one, so I don't want to bring that forward because we'll then not have a break. So I'd rather advise that we take a quick break and then come back here just at 11:25 so that we can get started at 11:30. Thank you very much, everyone.